Hello and welcome to the Buildup here on Balls.ie in association with Ladbrokes. Your look ahead to the biggest events of the sporting week. Now, we've been talking a lot about the Euros, Euro 2020 obviously underway. There's lots more sport as well. It might have missed some people's attention that there's a US Open starting in just 2 days. I'm delighted to say that we've got Mike Bailey, US golf writer, on, who we always have for the majors. Mike, you've given us some great tips in the past on this show, but it is kind of incredible that, like, I'm sure it's not the case in the golf world, but for some in the more general sport world, we've got, like, you know, the US Open just kind of popping up out of nowhere. I think it might be because we just had a major 3 weeks ago.
Yeah, it seemed like it was last weekend that Phil won, right?
Yeah.
Out of nowhere. By the way, I didn't have him, but I don't think anybody did. Really.
Yeah, so it was just that was a really, really fun week. Over here we had Shane Lowry and Padraig Harrington playing together on the last day. Harrington rolling back the years, Phil doing his thing. It was one of those kind of magical golf weeks. Now, the US Open is in Torrey Pines this week, and the last time it was in Torrey Pines, and in fact the only time it was, usually the home of the Farmers Insurance, I think in early season on the PGA Tour, but the only other time it's hosted the US Open was another one of those great golf weeks, because it was Tiger Woods' last US Open title. It was his last major up until 2019, and he went toe-to-toe with Rocco Mediate for the whole 19 holes on the Monday. Rocco, one of these kind of journeyman-style golfers who, like, just had the week of his life up against the greatest of all time, who had a torn ACL and a stress fracture in his leg, we later find out. I wonder, is that one of the most memorable US Opens that's ever happened?
Well, I mean, we're never going to forget that putt that put it into the playoff, where he's pointing at the ball, and you know that on those Poana greens, it seems like it changed direction about 7 times and then went into the center of the hole, and you're just thinking, Tiger's made a deal with the devil here, because you know, the odds of making that putt weren't that good, but when Tiger's putting it, they're really good. I mean, he just, that was a period in his life where it seemed like everything he looked at, he made, if it was important. I mean, if he needed the putt, he was going to make it, and he made it then. But, you know, give Rocco credit the next day in the playoff. Like you said, toe-to-toe the whole way. I mean, he had his chances. But, yeah, it's epic. I mean, it's definitely one of the most memorable U.S. Opens, certainly of our generation.
When you think of Tiger Woods, you know, in 10, 15 years' time, and we think back of, like, the great golfer he is, I feel like there's going to be a lot of Augusta in there in our memory. And I think then maybe the 3 slams in a row, or 4 slams in a row in 2000, 2001, right. and the way he kind of, like, destroyed Pebble Beach in the 2000 US Open. But I wonder, is that 2008 going to be there in terms of just his sheer will, in that, like, you know, you have this putt to go and save a tournament, and it's a more or less impossible one, but there's only one person that the whole country or the whole world is watching, thinking, yeah, but if anyone can make it, it's going to be Tiger. And then you go and do it. It's like Michael Jordan hitting the shot, you know, like in the buzzer. That's Tiger's legacy, is that he's the only one who could do that, and he went out and did it. Yeah,
you know, when you think about Tiger Woods, I mean, obviously there's the debate of who's the greatest golfer of all time, and many of us feel like that Tiger is, even though he doesn't have the record for majors. But one thing I've always thought about Tiger is he's never been as talented as he is, he's never been an underachiever. He's always been able to go even beyond his own talent, it seems like. I mean, I've never seen a guy that could focus the way that he could focus and will himself to win the way that he has done. And you can even take that to, you know, to his last Masters win, when nobody expected him to come out and do that, and he was able to do that. I mean, and then you think about, like you said, Pebble Beach, where he was so dominant and won by, I don't know, 100 shots. You know, and you know, you could take it to, you know, the Open too, when he's won there. I mean, you know, the time that he won at St. Andrews, and I don't know if he ever hit a driver. You know, so it was just crazy the way he's dominated the sport in his wins, and especially in his major wins. So yeah, you're right. That battle in 2008 between Tiger and Rocco. You know, the other one that I kind of compare it to is when he won the PGA at Valhalla, and I was there for that one, over Bob May, a guy that really was somebody we've never heard from again, and never heard from before. But that was another one where, you know, Bob May had every opportunity to pull the upset, and Tiger just willed himself to victory there. So, you know, he has that it's Tiger Woods. That's all you can say. It's just he's unique, and we'll never forget the way that he's won a lot of these majors.
Yeah, be interesting to see whether we ever see Tiger back out in the major again. Hopefully we do, but it won't be this year. And without Tiger, we're waiting for somebody to kind of grab that brass ring, Mike, and nobody's quite doing it yet. But after what happened at the PGA, which, it's been an ongoing story bubbling for over a year now between Bryson DeChambeau and Brooks Koepka, but with that leaked video and so on and so forth, and all the back and forth between them, I'm just wondering how big a story that is in the general sports coverage in the US at the moment, outside of the Golf Channel and so on. Is there that kind of interest where if these two guys are in the final group on Sunday, you've got record ratings for the US Open?
Oh, I think there's no doubt that'll be the case. It's to us who are a little more golf purists, we think it's kind of unfortunate. But when you're trying to draw people in who don't watch golf all the time, that would be huge. I mean, there are people calling for them to be pairs in the first round. That would have been interesting. They should somehow make it together on the weekend contending. Everybody's going to want to see that, and I think everybody's going to be aware of it too, because it's not just going to be the golf media that's going to be pointing this out. It's going to be ESPN, the local sports media. Everybody's going to be talking about that for sure, because while it's a little bit soap opera-ish, obviously. People like a good rivalry, and this would certainly create that. It's already been created. I'm not sure how much of a rivalry it is for the two players, to be honest with you, but just the fact that they've, that it's been so contested, and certainly the way it got accelerated at Memorial with, and we only had one of the players there. That's the amazing part about the whole thing, and the fans getting involved and everything else. So yeah, it'd make for great TV, and hopefully maybe we'll see it. Who knows? Yeah,
and maybe we need them to be both brilliant players. Koepka's won 4 majors, for God's sake, and
right.
DeChambeau's the current US Open champion. I don't mean to in any way downgrade them, but it probably needs both of them to be always contending, possibly in top 2 or 3 in the world, always, for it to be that next level, for it to be Tiger, Phil, who never had that animosity between them, even though they might not have always loved each other. It never got to that level, but they were always the 2 best golfers, at least for a long period of time. So maybe it needs that. And when you look at the odds this week, Mike, John Rahm, who was second here earlier in the year and won a couple of years ago, is clear favourite at 9-1 on Ladbrokes. But if you look at the next, I think it's 8 golfers on the list here. You have Koepka and DeChambeau both at 14. You have Dustin Johnson, who hasn't been in great form, at 14. You have Morikawa at 16, Jordan Spieth at 16, Justin Thomas at 16, Rory McIlroy, who we'll end up talking about no doubt, and his never-ending non-return to form, I suppose, at 16, and Xander Schauffele at 16 as well. That's between 14 and 16-1, 8 golfers, and they're second and whatever it is, 5th favorites. That's an unbelievable list, and just shows you that nobody is quite grasping that this year, quite taking that mantle of who is going to take over, who's going to be the next superstar in the game. And I'm just wondering, do you think it's how much does golf need that 1 or 2 players to be dominating the game? Because when I'm watching and when I'm actually paying attention, to be honest, having it that open, and there is kind of 8 or 10 guys who can win any week, is an interesting thing in itself, if they're always kind of from that similar pool of great players. But I don't know if it's a simple enough story to grab the attention of the world.
Yeah, I think you hit on it. The hardcore golfer loves that it's up in the air, and I mean, guys like myself, I'm intrigued by it. I mean, because it's really hard to predict, and you don't have that one guy. So to me, it's very interesting. But I think to your casual sports fan who only tunes into the majors of golf and otherwise doesn't really follow it all that closely, they need somebody they can hang their hat on, whether it was Tiger Woods or Phil Mickelson or back in the day Jack Nicklaus or Lee Trevino, or you need those guys to draw in the non-hardcore golf fans, and and what you just alluded to, that the little feud with DeChambeau and Brooks. I mean, that's what's going to draw people in at the moment. But the other thing that's going to draw them into this one, I think everybody wants to see how Phil Mickelson will do.
Yeah.
Because that came out of nowhere, and he looked, I think people forget. I mean, this guy was 2 or 3 over par through the first few holes of that tournament, and then just turned it on. So, he's definitely going to be one of the people to watch at basically what is a home course for him. And we'll see how he does. But so you got that aspect of it. Certainly not a dominant player with just the one surprise major out of nowhere. But you're right. I mean, it would be nice to get somebody who's really on form for a while and looks like the favorite week in and week out. That way you have your David and Goliath scenario where, and again, go back to 2008. That's exactly what that was. I mean, whether you wanted Tiger to win or whether you wanted to see Rocco pull off the upset, it was great TV. It was great theater.
Yeah, absolutely. And it'll be interesting to see what happens this week. But we're going to talk about some of the contenders. We obviously mentioned a few of them. Just wondering how much you think course form matters here. We mentioned Rahm. Main reason I would think he's favourite. He's obviously in good form as well, but he won it 4 years ago. He was second to Patrick Reed this year. Mark Leishman has won here. Jason Day has won twice, not in great form in general. Grant Snedeker has won twice, but gone back a couple of years. Bubba Watson, that's in the last 10 years. And just one name in there. The reason I mentioned course form is because Tiger Woods has won the Farmers Insurance 7 times. He's won at Torrey Pines 8 times. He had just completed either 3 or 4 in a row of the Farmers Insurance in 2008 when he went on to win the US Open. US Open, a lot of rough, very, very difficult. The USGA will set up this course in a way that anyone who hasn't played in 2008 will have never seen Torrey Pines like it before. But still, Tiger's performance at least would suggest that course form matters around here.
Yeah, I mean, but Tiger's unique. I think that's true. But if you talk to anybody, like you just said, playing it in the Farmers Insurance Open and playing a U.S. Open, fairways are much narrower. The rough is thicker, deeper, much more difficult during the U.S. Open, obviously. So it's the same golf course, but it's a different golf course. That's kind of why I like guys that are really good tee to green. I think that's why I think Colin Morikawa has an outside shot to win this thing because, keeping it in the fairway is huge. But on the other hand, when you got deep rough like that, being able to bomb and gouge could pay dividends as well. So, that's where you could see a Bryson DeChambeau or a Dustin Johnson, perhaps, if he figures it out this week. Anybody who's strong and can really can hit the tee ball far and doesn't have a big problem getting it out of the rough. But I think it's going to be a big problem. If you're living in the rough, you're not going to win.
Yeah. You might be able to get away with it once or twice. Is it like for those of us who don't know it that too well and don't remember maybe the ins and outs of 2008 other than the storyline? Is it a good golf course for a US Open? Is it suited for that? Get you in real trouble if you're too far offline course for that?
Yeah, I think it is. I mean, I don't remember exactly what the leaders were when they went to the playoff, but it wasn't a lot under par. That's for sure. Not like it is for the Farmers Insurance Open. So, I mean, honestly, you can almost take any PGA Tour course. The US Open, the USGA can get a hold of it, narrow the fairways, grow the rough, get the greens look kind of crusty, and in this case with Torrey Pines, those are Poana greens. So you better be hitting it fairly close because it's going to be hard to make a lot of putts out there. You're going to need a little luck on your side because Poana's bumpy. Obviously, it's not it's not like putting on bent grass or even some of the really good hybrid Bermudas now. So there's a lot of factors involved, and then, and it's by the ocean, so you could get wind out there. Although I think the weather's going to be pretty good, and I mean, for the PGA, the weather was actually outstanding. So
Mm.
you just never know what you're going to get by the coast. But I'm guessing the weather's not going to be too difficult for them. I haven't totally looked at the weather forecast, but San Diego's best weather in the world. So I would expect it to be pretty good conditions for certainly most of the rounds. But the course itself, yeah, they can make that setup very difficult. Those greens are perched, so they're not easy to hit. So the guys that can hit those greens and stay out of trouble, they're going to have a chance.
Yeah. The only downside of a San Diego US Open, Mike, is a bloody late nights for us over in Ireland, I have to say. As we,
hey, even here, right?
Yeah, absolutely. You mentioned we talked a good bit about Rory, and I feel like it's same old a little, before, and he could come into form, and there's definitely no writing him off, but it's wait and see a little bit. Can I ask you a little bit about Shane Lowry? Obviously being parochial here and mentioning an Irish guy, but his form has just, again, it's almost even improved since the last time we spoke, but it's again just maybe that like one bit of luck or maybe two holes around just
right.
where a putt falls, that he feels like he's playing the kind of golf, to me anyway, that can win tournaments. Would you agree with that from more of an outsider looking in?
Yeah, totally. And I had Shane at the PGA in my pool.
Mm.
And he played well there. I mean, he had a chance to get into contention certainly, and so I don't know what it takes. You're right. I mean, you can't have those bad holes basically. I mean, you certainly can't have more than about one. So I mean, he looks good. He looks really good, like 95% of the time. So he's a guy that could certainly break through. He's a big, strong fella who can recover from the rough, and I think he has a wonderful touch around the greens, and he's a pretty good putter, and so it wouldn't shock me if he was right there. And he's been playing well for a while now. You're exactly right.
Let's hear about who you've got in the famous pools, Mike, because this is done very well for us over the years. As you mentioned, Lowry, that was in the money last time. We had a very, very good Masters as well, picking Hideki Matsuyama. Who have we got this week? I know you already mentioned Morikawa as one of the more favored players, but a couple of outsiders as well.
Well, I mean, let me go back to some of the favorites. I really like Patrick Reed here. He, even though I don't put a ton of stock into what they do at Torrey Pines, like you said, you can't ignore it. And he won there most recently. There was a little controversy there in that as well, I believe. But
Patrick Reed and controversy, Mike, surely.
Yeah,
that wouldn't like him at all.
But you can't take his skills are fantastic, and he looked really good on that golf course. And he's a guy that doesn't let outside noise bother him. So he's not a choker, that's for sure. And I think he will contend there. I like Will Zalatoris. He's really been playing well. He's a great ball striker. I'm waiting for this kid to break through. I mean, he kind of came out of nowhere this year, and he's been doing it week in and week out. I think he's like second, third, and top 10 finishes on the PGA Tour. So he's been very consistent. I would be very surprised with a good performance. And another guy I kind of like is Corey Connors. Really good ball striker, very good iron player. So, a guy like that could hit a lot of greens and be right there as well. So there's a couple of outsiders that I like, and maybe Paul Casey. He's still playing very well in his career, and he's always played well in U.S. Opens and majors for that matter. And he's getting to that part. He's getting to that age where you don't know how many good years he's got left, but he seems that he still hits the ball very well. All aspects of his game are good, and he's a very consistent player. So that's what you want to see at a U.S. Open. So I certainly wouldn't be surprised to see him play very well. But going back to all those guys that are 16-1 and yeah, any one of them could find the magic this week. Who knows who it's going to be? But I wouldn't be jumping on Dustin or even Bryson DeChambeau or Brooks. I mean, a lot of these guys are showing flashes in one round, but they seem to fade back. And we saw what Brooks did in the final round of the PGA. Not saying he's going to repeat that again, but that was honestly, it was a very disappointing final round.
Yeah, absolutely. Just going back very briefly to mention Paul Casey there, it just occurred to me when you were saying it that he's had one of the weirder careers that I can remember. I know guys come up and down in form, but Casey had this thing where he was the next big thing, disappeared off the face of the earth for his prime years, and then in his late 30s made this comeback to this being incredibly consistent golfer in major tournaments where he feels like he's going to finish in the top 5 every time. And it's like, you feel like, oh God, where were you when you were between 28 and 35,
Yeah, I watched him win here in Houston years and years ago and thought the same thing. Thought, well, this guy's, I mean, he's destined to do great things. And you're right, he kind of disappeared. They talk about golfers a lot of times, though, reaching their peak in their mid-30s. And, maybe that's the case with him. Who knows what goes on with these, they do well in their 20s, they get a little money, and, maybe they lose some of their dedication. And as they look like they're going to lose their card, get rededicated, get with another coach and find their game again, because the line is so fine between winning and contending and just kind of struggling to make it, there comes a time in everybody's life, no matter what your career is, you feel like you get a little later in it, you got to push it a little. And I think that's probably what happened with him.
Yeah, well, he's had a great career as well. It's just kind of one of those things that you feel like there could have been a major or two. Well, we've got 5 golfers here, Mike, that you've gone for. Morikawa at 16-1, Patrick Reed at 25-1, Will Zalatoris 33-1, Paul Casey 40-1, and Connors at 40. Corey Connors at 45-1. All on ladbrokes.com, those prices, of course. If any of them come off, I think we'll be doing okay, and we'll cover the rest of them. So, Mike, enjoy the US Open. Hopefully, regardless of be it Phil or DJ or Corey Connors, whoever it is, seeing crowds back at the PGA, and they went a little bit crazy on the 18th, let's face it, when Phil won. But at the same time, it just felt like there was a bit of life back in golf and in sport, and it was a real tonic, I would say, and it feels like we're getting more and more of that every week. So hopefully it's an enjoyable US Open this weekend.
I think it'll be fantastic. Can't wait to see it.
Thanks so much for joining us, Mike. Brilliant stuff from Mike there. You can watch the US Open, of course, from Thursday. And, of course, if you having a bet on it on ladbrokes.com, of course, please do gamble responsibly and visit dunlewy.net for more information. We'll be back tomorrow with a special Euro show, Euroballs, with Gabby Agbonlahor and Kevin Doyle will be looking ahead to the England-Scotland game. So we'll talk to you then tomorrow evening.